All right. Well, Susan, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Lauren. I can't wait to have this chat with you.
Yeah, so Susan, for those of you who don't know, so it's Susan Latremoille. I think I got that right. She is the co-founder and president of Next Chapter Lifestyle Advisors. Did I get that right as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
partner. Yes.
Yes, perfect. So we were just chatting about all things in this industry, a little bit of NAPFA and KITSIS and conversations that are happening. And you have this unique bend around lifestyle retirement planning, which we're going to talk more about today. And I'm really excited to sort of dive in and hear a little bit more about what you're seeing from just like a more practical level of how to really reach a retiree, a pre-retiree audience, and then also just how to make your operations procedures and communications really fit this demographic. But before we get into all of that, I want to hand it over to you. And if you could just share a little bit more about your background. How did you get into this space? Why this demographic? Tell us a little bit more, please.
Sure. Happy to do that, Lauren. Well, actually, I was a financial advisor for 38 years.
Mm.
So I worked at three different firms over my 38 years and built a successful practice, primarily working with high net worth and ultra high net worth clients.
Mm.
And, I thought my job was done as a financial advisor when my clients had enough money to retire.
Mhm.
And then I started to notice as they sold their businesses or stepped away from their careers or professions that many of them were not as happy as they thought they would be.
Mhm.
And here I was, I prided myself on being that holistic financial advisor, and yet I'd completely ignored that there was a whole other side to a retirement planning than
Yeah.
just having enough money to retire. And what really brought it home to me was a particular client. His name was Alan,
Mhm.
and he was a very successful business owner. It was a family furniture business.
Mhm.
And he would always talk about how he couldn't wait to retire. He had a beautiful home in a gated community in Florida. He was an avid golfer. And so his dream, his retirement dream when he sold out of the company was to go to Florida for the winter and play golf. So I
Sounds
wished him well in November. It all
yes,
sounded
yes.
so idyllic. And he left, and I saw him when he came back. We had our usual checkup meeting when he came back from Florida. And honestly, I was expecting to see this tanned and happy and like really exuberant guy,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe it. What he was so down. He said to me, "I'm so bored with the same guys I play golf with every day. I'm so frustrated with my golf game. I thought I'd be a
Mhm.
crackerjack by now, and it actually isn't improved. And
Yes.
I've injured my shoulder. I played every day, and it was too much for my body. So instead of being this happy and excited and really positive man, he was actually pretty depressed and down and disillusioned. And I started to see this pattern play out over and over again,
Mm.
especially with people that were really high achievers, business
Right,
owners, and professionals that had reached the pinnacle and so on. And
right.
I thought, there's something wrong here. Why doesn't the financial services industry know anything about this phenomena or do anything?
Mm.
So that's what really prompted me to sell my practice, which I did. I didn't want to stay in competition with other advisors. So I sold the practice entirely to focus this next stage of my career on the non-financial side of
Mm.
retirement planning. And so that's my story. That's how I got here. And it was really all prompted with what I saw with clients when I started to look beyond just do they have enough money to retire comfortably?
Yes. So tell me a little bit more about what are you doing to support advisors, or is it specifically advisors you're working with? Are you working with their clients? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
We actually work with both advisors and their clients. So I'll outline more specifically what we do with advisors. We created an advisor program, a next chapter advisor program, and we call our advisors in the program first movers because
Oh.
they really are those thought leaders, those advisors that want to expand beyond just talking to their clients about money and doing
Mhm.
financial planning, investments, insurance.
Yep.
They are people that say, I want to look after my clients from a broader perspective. I care about their lives. I care about how well they fare, throughout their retirement journey. So those are the types of advisors that resonate with the work that we do. So specifically for advisors, we have a number of things. First of all, within our advisor program, we teach them how to have a different conversation with their clients. Because
Yes.
quite often advisors, I mean, we're all trained to talk
Right.
about markets and the economy and
Right.
interest rates and portfolios. But to me, that's not what the clients want to talk about. They want to talk about what's going on in their lives, what wakes them up at 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
what they're excited about, and so on. So we have a training program for financial advisors to change that conversation. And
Hmm.
we used a template for that guided conversation called your next chapter scorecard. So
Oh.
that's one of the things. We also provide content for financial advisors that they can put in their newsletters or blogs or simply articles to send out to their clients. Instead of putting recipes in their newsletter, they put on a thought leadership piece about some aspect of retirement from a non-financial perspective.
Hmm.
We offer, in addition to that, we do webinars
Uh-huh.
for financial advisors' clients.
Oh.
So it started in COVID when, it was very
Yes.
popular to have virtual webinars, and we've
Yes.
continued to this day to do both virtual and in-person webinars and workshops for advisors' clients. We
Hmm.
have 6 topics that we speak on, and I
Yeah.
can outline those if you want to go into more detail. But the webinars are a great way for advisors to engage their clients in a conversation that isn't just about money and markets kind of thing. So those are some of the key highlights. We also have a bit of a community of advisors in that we
Mhm.
meet about 8 times a year in the advisor roundtable. And we usually have a guest speaker, and then the advisors have a chance to interact with each other because they all are like-minded in that they are, just not just thinking about product and process.
And are these roundtables virtual, I'm assuming then?
Yes, they're
Okay.
virtuals. They take place on a Monday afternoon, at 4:30 Eastern. They're 45 minutes. They start on time, end on time, and we record them actually. All of them are
Mhm.
recorded and they're on the members section of our website.
That's
So when an
wonderful.
advisor signs up for the program, they get access to all the pre-recorded web roundtables that we've done over this past few years.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I just wanted to kind of go back to what you were saying a little bit earlier about the webinars. Uh,
Mhm.
we've seen webinars be a really fantastic tool, especially for this retiree, pre-retiree group, especially topics around thinking about, am I going to consult after I retire, or what does that next phase of life look like? And I'd be really curious to hear from you, and we'll have to link. I'm assuming you've got maybe the topics on your website or what have
Yes.
you, link to that as well. But I'm curious from you, sort of how do advisors, clients respond to those webinars? And is the advisor on the webinar as well? Sort of, are there certain topics that work well? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that component of your
Sure.
business.
Sure, yeah. So our webinars are usually under an hour in length, and
Mhm.
depending on compliance departments, they can be interactive, but many compliance departments don't allow audience participation.
Okay.
And they come in 2 formats. One is the advisors can purchase a pre-recorded webinar that
Okay.
then they can link to their site, they can send it out, they can put
Mm.
on a live event using a recorded webinar. And the other is a live virtual webinar
Mhm.
where there can be interaction. And we want to make it really easy for the advisors to put these on for their clients. So we provide them with the webinar solution guide, and it
Mhm.
has everything in it that they need to put on the webinar. We give them the social media assets, the save the date, the template for the invitation, give them hosting instructions,
Oh, that's great.
scripts, and everything.
Yes.
So the idea is that it doesn't take a lot of the advisor's time. They can hand it off to a marketing person on their team or an admin
Right.
person on their team or outsource it to do all the logistics. And then the advisor just shows up to host the webinar and then follows up.
Mm.
And we've had some advisors have had tremendous success with that in both reaching the non-financial spouse in their
Yes.
client couples,
Yes.
as well as using social media and other means of spreading the word to attract new people to their practice.
Mm.
I can talk about the topics if you want, Lauren,
Yes,
just give
let's
you
chat on,
a
maybe
thumbnail.
chat on, hit on a few that you think would be interesting to hear a little bit more about.
Sure. Yeah, so there are a series of 6, and there are 2 general ones. 3 secrets to a happy retirement is one general one. Your happiness portfolio for retirement. So
Hmm.
that's, I can elaborate on that, our whole portfolio, happiness portfolio concept. But then the other four are for specific audiences. So we have one for couples because we know that the divorce rate, and we call it gray divorce, is very high when
Mhm.
people retire and some go their separate ways. So how to prevent retirement from ruining your relationship. We
Mhm.
have one for women because women face some different issues in retirement than men. So
Mhm.
one is specifically focused there. One of the other webinar topics is called Flying Solo, and this
Mhm.
is for people that are divorced, widowed, never married, not partnered with anyone. So
Yes.
what's it like to retire and fly solo at this stage of life? And then one that's really popular with business owners and is called the Retirement Challenges of High Achievers, Business Owners, and Workaholics.
Mm.
And a lot of business owners really relate to that one because many of them do work. Work is all they know. And so, they often have a much more difficult time with this transition, like my client Alan that I talked about a few minutes
Yes,
ago.
yes. So just for folks that are listening to and may not be as familiar, I know you shared a little bit earlier about your background personally and how you got into this space. How are these webinars though coming together? Is it paired with your background? Are there others on the team that are putting together this content? Where is that coming from to
Mhm.
really make it as robust as possible?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So my business partner is Marianne Osher, and she has been a retirement coach for more than a decade.
Wow.
So she has done a lot of the research and investigation into this whole phenomena. She started her career as a relationship coach, and
Mhm.
that's what led her to really delve into that issue of gray divorce with couples because she was living in Naples, Florida at the time, which is a mecca for
Mhm.
retirees, and
Yes.
the couples that were coming to her were often having some challenges in their relationship. So that's where she started with relationship and then got into retirement coaching. So
Mhm.
she's the expert on content and does a lot of our writing and research and delivery of the client facing webinars.
Mhm.
My work is more because my own background as a financial advisor is more working with financial advisors and their firms, although at times we do overlap with each other and I can present the webinars too, but she's really
Yeah.
the main person doing that.
Oh, that's great to have a little bit of that context too. And you're so familiar too, right, with the space, having been in that seat as
I lived it.
well.
Yeah.
Yes, you've lived it. So I wanted to shift topics a little bit. We've talked a lot about sort of the services you've offered, some of these virtual options for advisors and their clients, webinars and such. Love to hear a little bit more from your perspective if there's a firm that's really thinking about and perhaps targets, this demographic of pre-retirees and retirees. Are there any kind of best practices to make either that onboarding experience seamless, once they've been onboarded, regular drips? I'd love to hear a little bit more about things that sort of work well, or things that advisors should be thinking about that make sense to kind of bake into their day-to-day checkpoints for this demographic.
Yeah. No, so I think in terms of onboarding, it all starts with the discovery meeting.
Mhm.
And coming back to my mention of the scorecard, so
Yes.
many advisors in their discovery meetings will talk about themselves, their credentials, their team, their approach to
Mhm.
money management,
Yep.
etc. And they don't spend enough time with the client speaking. So what I discovered actually about 20 years ago was that
Yes.
if I did a discovery meeting and didn't talk very much, but got the client, or in that case, a prospect talking, that at the end of the meeting, typically they'd say, I think I can trust you. And boy, this was only an hour we were together and you know so much about me. Well, guess what? You did the talking, not me. But to get them to open up and talk, especially if you've never met them before, is a special skill. And that's what we teach advisors, how to have that kind of conversation that really gets at what's in their hearts, what keeps them awake at night, as I mentioned, and yet doesn't sound invasive or digging. So I used to never actually talk about money in
Mhm.
those meetings, those first meetings, and I had a good success rate of converting those prospects to being a client because I was different than the conversations that other advisors were having, which was look at me, and
Yep.
how great I am, and where the market, the S&P 500 is going, or the
Yes.
latest fund or whatever. And so taking the focus away from product and process and the whole thing and
Yes.
focusing on the individual was really the key to engaging those people.
Such a
It's
huge point.
also a great way. So, it's often the non-financial spouse that really is in the background making the decision about who they work with as an advisor. And this stuff really appeals to that person that just doesn't understand financial and never really wants to dig into it. They light up,
Mm-hmm.
and it really becomes a much more balanced conversation than just one-sided.
That's great. And then once, it's such good insight too. When someone becomes a client, are there any recommendations that you have as far as touch points? Do you see that this demographic, responds better to, I know you talked about webinars. I've often seen in-person events like seminars or luncheons work really well just because there is that flexibility of schedule typically. I'd love to hear a little bit more. We also, even the questions of paper. Do I print, leave behinds and do I give that to folks? How is that received, And for us, a lot of the times, especially, for a younger demographic, we're often saying like, you don't even need the paper, just have digital versions and have a few printed copies as a backup. I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that as you carry forward that relationship with clients.
Yeah. Well, I think there's nothing that replaces people getting together. And so, what I used to do in my own practice was have kind of lunch and learn meetings where we'd have a speaker, but it wouldn't be so monopolized by the speaker that people at the table couldn't just, have a conversation with each other.
Right.
So, I love a round table format with around 4 couples or 8 people at the table,
Mhm.
strategically placed, and sometimes prospects mixed in with the existing clients. Because if a prospect is kind of sitting on the fence. They're not sure who they're going to land up with as an advisor. By putting them in with your best clients, your raving fan clients,
Mm.
often at the end of the event, they'll say, oh, they deal with so and so. Oh,
Yep.
I'd like to be part of that group. And then
Yep.
that sort of they get closed very seamlessly that way.
Mhm.
Also, people like to be in community. And, during COVID, this was one of the hardest parts for so many people was the isolation. And often when people have retired, they are cut off from their colleagues, the people they used to work with.
True.
And
Yeah.
many are really struggling and trying to build these new social connections. So
Hmm.
by bringing like-minded people together or like stage people together, they often find kind of new friends or
Yep.
people that are going through some of the same aspects of the life journey, whether it be comparing notes on grandchildren or how
Mhm.
to rewire themselves or what kind of consulting they're doing or even travel or, finding meaning at this stage of life. I mean, it can lead to some really worthwhile conversations.
Oh, such good insights. Um, I think we could be here for a while. So, I do want to just, if you have any other kind of final thoughts for folks that are listening or places you think that they would be good to go to learn a little bit more, I'd love to hear if I haven't touched on anything that you want to make sure you cover.
Sure. Well, both my partner and I have written books and published books. My partner, Marianne Osher's book is Your Happiness Portfolio for Retirement. It's not about the money. Not
Mm,
that the money isn't critically important, but the book is not about the money. And she lays out in the book the essence of building a happiness portfolio for retirement. So
mm,
we use the portfolio analogy because it's like a portfolio which has different asset classes. So your life portfolio should also have different asset classes. So we break it down into 8 areas of life, all non-financial, that
mm,
are really important for people to plan
mm.
for their next chapter. And we don't really love the word retirement, but there
Yeah.
isn't a better word in the English language for it other than kind of next chapter.
Yeah.
And that leads to my book, which the latest one I've written, which is 9 Steps to a Rich Life Retirement.
Mm,
Live well, give back, leave a legacy. And
mm,
that all came from my rich life philosophy, which actually started many, many years ago when my clients would be so eager to earn that extra 0.5% on their portfolio. And then I'd ask them the question, well, what's all this money for? Oh,
mm,
there was this disconnection between the money and the purpose of the money.
mm,
So to me, this whole rich life thinking is that combination, that integration of the wealth to do what you want but also having a purpose for the wealth.
Yeah.
So our books are on Amazon, and they are, in a sense, guides for people that want to, and they make great giveaways for advisors. A number of our advisors buy the books and then hand them out to clients. It's a small investment, and it resonates well with that demographic.
Yeah, so timely.
Beyond that, of course, we're on LinkedIn. It's a great way to connect, but we also our website is nextchapterlifestyleadvisors.com.
Mhm.
And you can always reach me by email, Susan at nextchapterlifestyleadvisors.com. So, number of ways to interact with us, but we love hearing from financial advisors, and we love hearing from financial advisors who say, I have a client that needs your help,
Mhm.
because there's nothing better for a client that than to help them, guide them in the right direction of building that happiness portfolio, which then the meat of that can go back to the financial advisor so they can do a better job doing the financial plan once they know what the life plan of that client entails.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a full circle win-win. So,
Exactly.
well, Susan, thank you so much for your time and also for the work that you do. I love that you've literally walked in the shoes, right? You've been an advisor, and you now you're also taking that work and then helping to support the advisor community, but also other clients of that community as well. So thank you for the good work that you do, and I'm excited. We'll make sure to link to your book and website as well, books, I should say, and website as well. So thank you again for your time today.
My pleasure, Lauren.